Thank you, Ronan. Well, it's a bit specific because I welcome you the day you're leaving, so it's a bit weird. But anyway, sometimes in France we do things differently, as you probably noticed. So anyway, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you on the Valabre site, which is very specific, very emblematic. Valabre is a public civil defense center which exists in service for 60 years, and we've been dealing with fires for 60 years, and we work on the domain of forest firefight. And I will establish a parallel with what we're doing what you're doing at the European level. I was saying, when we talked about what is being done in France, the fight against forest fire used to be managed by municipalities, and about 50 odd years ago we realized that in fact the municipal response were not coordinated, poorly organized, and each and every corner had created interesting things, but the municipality next door didn't know about it, so we had to reinvent the wheel constantly. So it was not very good in terms of operation. There was a problem of discipline, the problem of fire control, but everybody had developed different things, but there was no dialogue, no discussion, no exchange. So we created a public authority, and the mission was to capitalize, to organize the knowledge, and to make sure that all over France we all speak the same language and we all share our knowledge and competences. So why do I say this? Because I have a feeling today that this is what I see, that this philosophy is now leading in the DGI ECO, at least, hence the idea of creating the network of knowledge, which we realize that we all have different experiences, skills, competence and know-how in our countries, but it's interesting now actually to see what is being done elsewhere, in the neighboring countries, to see what are the similarities, differences, and try to get all this together, and the objectives, being to obtain something coherent. And of course, in terms of, civil defense or civil security, this is a universal dimension, and we have nothing to hide. We're here to protect the population. Want to preserve the environment, and we're all here to collaborate, and I think this is the very objective of this AFAN project. Of course, there is a thematic forest fire analysis, which of course the basis, of our, there's been a lot of success, proper fire analysis to make sure that, the action of the firefighters would be carried very efficiently. So, and you all exchange on the way, you do your best practices. So it's far more than interesting. It is actually essential. We have to continue such action. I know the project is reaching its end, but the network will keep going. And even if the project is completed now, we still have a network. There is another project, actually, Nemesis project, which deals with the general theme of forest fires and wildfires, and we want to reinforce the network of knowledge between countries. I think the project will be completed within 6 months, and then countries will all be involved. I think there will be a tour in the various countries, to describe the project, to introduce the project, so that they will all get involved in this essential approach. Every country which each country which deal with forest fires, and countries that will have to deal with forest fires, because let's face it, with climate change, this will move on. So we want to make sure that everybody is able to exchange knowledge, and we make sure that this exchange takes place. And and if everything takes place in Valabre, just as well, but, what we want to make sure that we are able to exchange, regardless of the site where we do it. So I want to thank all those who got involved and really get involved, engaged in this project. I know it's always difficult to run a project, to complete a project, So thank you, Mona, Philippe, and all the participants. And I wish you, and even though I know there will be a continuation, there will be follow-up, and once more, we'll be here collectively, and we'll make sure that we all work together. And thank you all for your actions and your efforts. Have a very good day, and I'll give the floor to Ronan. I think I'm right in the timing. Thank you. Have a good day.
Merci, Monsieur le Contrôleur Général. À mon tour, je voulais rappeler quelques éléments.
Ronan. I would like to remind you a couple of items. So, the French strategy for forest fires was decided more than 30 years ago, and we have designed training units, and Valabre organizes training sessions for forest fire managers. Recently, we've been welcoming European trainees, who then convey knowledge in their countries. So they use their own procedures and their own means. The very concept of fire analysis is not really developed in France, except in a few departments, such as the Bouches-du-Rhône and the Landes, which is close to in the southwest of France. For several years now, the European Union has been promoting the close solidarity between several countries. There have been firefighters from various countries been detached to help local fires in other countries. So, we can deploy different means, including air support, and we use this. So we have to understand, as an analyst, where does the fire start from? So the AFAN network makes it possible to valorize the knowledge. So I would like to thank for the work Raval Suplisson from the National School of Firefighters and Commandant Xavier Joseph from 1013 for their support and active participation to the works of the school.
Je présente Teresa Capula, qui représente la Commission européenne.
Bonjour, et merci pour cette invitation.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
Capula, and on behalf of the European Commission and the GIACO, I am the policy officer of the AFAN project. And I will try to give you a quick overview of what we are doing just to build this knowledge network that our host presented also this morning. So this is a sentence of the commissioner. Preparedness, we need preparedness, and preparedness depends on knowledge. So we launched in last December the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network to bring together civil protection, disaster management experts, and share knowledge. So the slogan of the knowledge network is connect, share, and grow. So also introduce innovation in civil protection. These are the goal of the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network. We are at the really beginning of the building of the network. So stronger community, share knowledge for action, and research that matters. So research that it's really linked to the needs and application of the research in civil protection. I don't want to spend time on the structure of the knowledge network. Of course, we have a board, we have a member state that we will also approve a strategic plan and an annual plan of the knowledge network. We have a secretariat that is based on DG ECHO. And we have the two pillars. There are the structure of the knowledge network, the capacity development pillar. There is about training So strengthened capacity development initiative, and the science pillar, as I said, that is for bring together academia, practitioner, and decision makers. So now these are several activities that are already in the knowledge network, and maybe you have already participated in UCPM training program or in the exchange of a civil protection expert. We also have grants and tender for civil protection exercise, and we also had the lessons learned program. So we'll try to make the best of the past experience, in particular regarding deployment, and we are also trying to work more on awareness raising activities and on community engagement. So this slide is because no matter if you are a policymaker or practitioner or researcher, you know that in this physical and virtual table we have different stakeholders. This we try to I try to list some of the advantages that the knowledge network can brings to you. So in particular for a project, the opportunity to share the results and the best practice coming from project. Also when the project is ended, so also share with other actors others than the project consortium. And of course we need you for feed the knowledge network, so you are part of the process, you are part of the system. And of course the knowledge network is also funding opportunities. As already said, we have a call, and we supported in the first call the AFAN project, and in the second one the Nemauses project. Here you have an overview of different organizations all over Europe that participate in the call. Now we have an open call that the deadline is the 9th of June. You will find all the information about the call on the funding and tender portal of the European Commission. We have an information day the 3rd March, and the streaming of this information day is available at this link if you want to have a look to all the information that we provide. So just tips if you are planning a participation in the call. So we have here two strands because we have different budget lines. And at the end of my intervention, we already talked about yesterday about the platform. The platform of the knowledge network is the main working tool of the community. So we will try to, we will have in the platform that now is online only as informative site, but we are developing collaborative feature, and the objective is to have the platform online at the end of June. And in the platform we will have, as I said, a collaborative feature, a knowledge library listing all the results of the project that the community find useful, and the place to share, connect and grow. So it's a common effort, and we need to work together just to build trust with all the actors and enhancing knowledge. So this is the work that we have had. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup Teresa. Je donne maintenant la parole à Nuria, qui est la coordinatrice du projet AFAN, qui appartient à l'association Cocostop.
Merci. Bonjour. Hello everyone that's joining also the event remotely. I just want to give a very, very brief overview of AFAN. We are here in the final event. We are very happy to be in Valaru. Thank you very much for hosting us here. We feel always very welcome to be here. AFAN has been one of the projects funded by these network partnerships that Teresa just introduced. And we are very lucky to be that, to give an opportunity to the fire network to be able to be part of this initiative. AFAN stands for Advanced Fire Analysis Network, and we have been producing these infographics through the project that we aim to explain a little bit the AFAN concept, and I would like to walk you through a little bit of what's AFAN using these infographics. So basically, everything starts in the networks that already exist, networks of experts that work in wildfires, that collect information, build knowledge, and share that to other networks. And these networks are built on trust, commitment, confidentiality. So we want to take advantage of this already existing network and build something, strengthen and empower networks for learning together and harmonizing this knowledge that is there, and it can be of a huge benefit for all of us as a community. Then this fire analysis is a very active resource to be deployed during emergencies and assess incident commanders for decision makers. So we believe that this knowledge and expertise, combined with all the different tools that are available, it's a plus added value. Then we can make a contribution and make the wildfire challenges in Europe a little, well, not better, but that at least we put more solutions on the table. The result of combining this knowledge is that we can have the strategic, tactical and operational vision improve. And this overall contributes to increase the safety of all the people that's deployed in emergencies, improve emergency management, and overall improve the safety of the population. So this is a little bit the picture. We start with the network. We create something together, and we believe this benefit will return back to the network. This is more or less the concept of the project and what we have been working on. Additionally, well, of course, it's a huge opportunity for network exchange, connect analysts. But we have been also trying to deliver some products. So we've been identifying existing fire analysis and assessment knowledge, skills and capacities across Europe. These are sort of the outcomes that we'll share with you after the coffee break this morning. We are also proposing a harmonized framework for fire analysis and assessment competencies, basically to talk about the role of analysts on decision making and the different responsibilities. This will also be presented. And we will also present the description we are doing on existing and novel remote assessment practices in recent international wildfires. So just to set a little bit what we'll be talking about the fund later today. More information can be found on the website, the social media accounts, and well, you see all the partners that are the core team here that have been developed this project so far. So thank you very much, and welcome everyone.
Merci beaucoup, Nuria.
So we are going to go now into the heart of the topic. I would like to introduce the first speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Vaucouleur, Director of Operation for the Zone Headquarters in the Southeast region. He is a firefighting officer with a long experience, sound experience in the forest fire situation, and followed all the training a few years ago. He followed the training done by our friends from Catalonia. Thank you, Ronan. Good morning.
Frederic Vaucouleur.
So, more precisely, I'm operation head within the headquarters of the Southern Zone. Just to remind you, the organization of civil protection in France. Donc, there are several departments, in France, and they ensure the operational covering of their territory. And once, when the departmental means and firefighting services are no longer sufficient, they can call upon the defense or zone or the civil protection zone. And in our civil protection zone, we have national land and airborne means, and we can also mobilize other departmental means to coordinate and provide them to help the demanding department and the zone. And when these means are also insufficient, we can call upon at the regional scale, the national headquarters will do the same thing as us. They will look with the other defense or civil protection zones what are the means that can be mobilized to reinforce, to back up the local systems, and of course the department which is concerned by the event. For in our case, we'll talk about forest fire, but of course this can be we act in all civil protection domains, floods, storms, or it could be anything. Now, I will focus on the South Civil Protection Zone. We cover, almost the entire south of France, including Corsica. The forest fire problematic, applies all year round, with mainly, of course, mountain fires in winter, in the Pyrenees, in the Alps, and in Corsica. And in summer, we have forest fires in the coastal department around the Mediterranean coast, and in the Cévennes, which is a mountain range, where there is another kind of vegetation and other types of fires with other issues such as behavior of the fire. So for this, we implement a system. This system relies on a weather forecast analysis, which is done by Météo France and by the French Forest Office. So we work with these two organizations, and throughout the summer, but not just summer, but we are constant contact with them, in open contact, but mainly in summer we focus on they will give us information, and data that will be put on, the internet. They are available to all the players of civil protection forces, and these weather forecast data will make it possible for us to assess the risk of forest fire, which is classified on a scale, a color scale or digital scale, which makes it possible to give us an indication as to the possible behavior of fires if they were to break out. So, this is a presentation of what Météo France can give us on a daily basis. You see the department, so there's only one part of the southern department, but anyway, so those are mainly concerned by forest fires. And from the weather forecast parameters, I'll spare you the details here. You're in a better position than me to know the weather forecast parameters. Well, these weather forecast parameters will be put on the map, and the expertise produced by Météo France makes it possible for us to identify the risk and fire behavior we should expect. And also we will study the the forest fire risk of forest fire danger based on the analysis done by the technicians from the National Forest Office, because they do samplings in the forest to look at the dryness of the vegetation. So when we cross this data, well, we can size the system that we will need to implement to prepare the days when there could be forest fire risks. Next slide. Well, just simply to show you that it's an inter-service system. We're not alone, in the head office. We work with other departments and other services which provide information for the prevention and fight against forest fire. So, this shows you the means available before the season to deal with forest fires. We do have land means of equipment, military equipment distributed throughout the département, which are exposed to risk. There are also national airborne material, helicopters which are just for the commanding officers and transport. Then there are helicopters, heavier helicopters used to ferry equipment and personnel and the fight. And we got planes as well, bomber fire. 3 types of planes. First reconnaissance. With thermal scanning systems. We have different modes. We infrared, video, and there we can analyze the various fires, and we use these images which are sent to the operational centers and the command control center. Only one is equipped for we'll have 2 planes soon. Then we got the Canadair bombers and the Dash 8 planes, 6 of them, which we'll have 8 planes in between now and 2024. The 2 planes are in Corsica for the summer season. 2 Canadairs, and then based on the location of the fires, but also on the location of danger, those planes could be dispatched to part of the other parts of the territory. In addition to the national means, as I said earlier on, we can use regional means among the department of the southern zone, the firefighting facilities. We organize columns of material, 12 vehicles, and these columns will be pre-positioned within the territory in order to anticipate on any demand from the firefighter departmental services.
So this is what it would look like. In other words, to be able to... the French strategy, to remind you, our strategy is to organize a massive attack of early fires. So there's a detection system that is used and managed at the department level, but there are also... we can also implement what we call armed aerial systems, so we have civil protection aircraft that will do patrols on some sectors, carry out patrols. They're represented here in the form of triangles on the map. So these patrols are carried out essentially with dash-kind planes with retarding products, chemicals, but they can also be carried out by Canadairs, and we use also retarding agents, and that will then be filled with water to fight the fire. So these patrols aim at quickly detecting a fire and acting rapidly with also land forces. So this is the strategy that we adopt, to detect rapidly and act rapidly from the moment the fire is spreading. The department means will take over. These department means, if they are insufficient, that's what I was saying earlier, they can the department can call on the chief of staff command to strengthen the mechanism, and at that point all the means that have been planned to anticipate the spreading of the fire can be mobilized to strengthen the department forces. It can be land forces, but it can also be, and mainly, chiefly, aerial means that will be used. So with the Canadair, we work with 4 aircrafts, and the Dash, for the Dash we worked with equipment that are distributed over the zone. So these are stations where the aircrafts with retarding agents can fill up and go to the fire. The idea is to limit the rotations, whether it's the Canadair or the Dash 8s. And the filling zone should be as close as possible to be efficient and act rapidly on the fire. So on top of these aerial means, aircraft means, we work with also other teams specialized in tactical fires. We work with crews that are specialized to work on forest cleaning, for example, teams that are used to put hoses, install the hoses, or with heavier engines and fire trucks. Also engines that can install some retarding barriers. So these are engines that can be filled with the retarding agents and create those barriers. So we have a panel of specialties or in forest firefighting that enable us to respond to the demands of the department and act as rapidly as possible on those fire events. So Ronan, I hope I kept to the agenda. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Craig Opt, who comes from the Rescue and Fire Services of South Wales. So Craig, do you want to join us?
Great for the translation and also for the people who are following us webinar, because Craig speaks French and English and very quickly. Thank you very much for. Don't speak in Gaelic, please.
Good morning, everybody. Bonjour. My name is Craig Hope. I'm a station manager and a tactical officer at South Wales Fire and Rescue Service. I'm also the service's wildfire specialist advisor, and I'm also a UK wildfire tactical advisor. And I'll start off by saying what a real privilege it's been for us as an organisation, not just to represent South Wales, but to represent the UK as part of this project. We are in our infancy in fire analysis, but we are trying to move forward, and every time we join a project and we work as a team and we work as a partnership, we move forward, and that's really important. I'll give you a little bit of an overview just so you understand, because I'm Welsh, I live in Wales, it rains an awful lot. We are really used to rain. We brought the rain to Marseille this week. I don't think they've had rain for 2 months. We arrived, it's rained for a week. So yes, we are a country of rain, but we're also a country of fire. We have had 75,000 fires across South Wales in the last 20 years. From very small to very, very large. And as you can imagine, these put huge strains on our firefighting resources. And what we have done is we've evolved from firefighters to fire managers. So where a lot of services are in the firefighting structural kit with beaters, we have slowly evolved for the last 15 years. We have ATV vehicles, we have lightweight fire kit, we use tactical fire, we use leaf blowers, we understand a little bit about fire analysis, and we're trying to move forward. It's always trying to evolve. We spent a lot of time chasing fires across the landscape, and now we can actually manage these fires, and it's really important because of the amount of fires that we're actually getting. When we look at the UK, so between 2009 and 2017, there were 260,000 wildfires. That's over 30,000 fires a year. And when the National Occupational Guidance was written, because that's such a vast number and we need to analyse what these numbers actually mean, we then classified what a wildfire is. So a wildfire is a fire which is over a hectare, and it needs to be one of these to be classed as a wildfire. So again, a sustained flame length of 1.5 metres, 4 or more fire source resources, committed for 6 hours or more, and a serious threat to life and the environment. And services have become better at recording these. As you imagine, this is a system that needs to be recorded. Our control rooms are very busy when we're having these fires with multiple calls coming in. So it then takes time for our control rooms to actually log these calls. So it's taken time for a new system for people to understand and people to record them, but in 2020, with 284 recorded wildfires, and so far this year, we've had 191 since January. So you can see we are getting lots of large-scale wildfires across the UK, which again really ties up our resources. Again, a bit of perspective, the continental Europe, especially the Mediterranean, these are summer fires, and our problems are different. Ours are winter and spring, and it's because the dead annual vegetation is cured, and as soon as it's dry enough to burn, it will burn and we will have large fires. We don't generally get a summer fire season, and we did in 2018, and what happened then was we had large scale fires, very difficult to extinguish because the ground is so dry, and we attended over 1,000 calls in just the month of July alone, and these are deliberate ignitions. These are not lightning, these are not natural, these are deliberate ignitions, people purposely going out and setting the landscape on fire. For what reason, we don't really understand. This is really complex problems, and there's been quite a lot of work to understand this, but again, it's very complex why people do this. The difference between the winter fires and summer fires is when we have fires in the winter, spring, with the fires, it removes the dead vegetation and the landscape greens up, the vegetation grows through. When we get the same fires in the summer, there's no time before the winter for the landscape to green up. So there's risks then of erosion and possibly landslides and these issues. And these are new risks that are coming to the UK, and especially the South Wales valleys where I live and work. So the UK picture. So we have wildfire tactical advisors, so fire services, firefighters in fire services are part of a group of wildfire tactical advisors, TACADs, and there are 45 of these trained across the UK who can respond anywhere in the UK to help other services deal with these problems, because this is a seasonal problem and it's an annual problem, but not every year. We don't know what this year will bring yet. Somebody asked me yesterday, what do I think the fire season will look like in the UK this year? I really cannot tell you. We can't predict what it'll look like until the weather patterns and we have the dry weather, because as you know, fire doesn't come without sunshine. But these tactical advisors, their job is to go onto the incident ground and assist the incident commander. And again, gather information and turn that information into knowledge. but they can then assist with making a tactical plan. So assisting incident commander with a tactical plan. So it's a real big challenge, and it's quite difficult to do, because you're going into services who maybe haven't got a lot of experience with wildfire, because some of these, we've had thousands, like I said, 76,000 fires in 20 years. Some services, they don't get these large fires, so they haven't got the experience. And so what does it look like? So we have an incident commander. You can see the picture. This is the incident command post, probably very similar to how other services operate. And we will try to embed a wildfire tactical advisor into the command structure, into the command room, so they can speak to the incident commander, speak to the planning team. And then on the incident ground, we will have wildfire tactical advisors. Now that depends on the size of the incident, depends how many we need. But what happens then, there's this communication. They're constantly all talking to each other, talking to the embedded TACAD in the incident command suite. And what this means is there's only one person talking to the incident commander or the planning team. So there's no mixed messages, there's one message, and that's really important as well. So when you can see there's a really long list here, and these are the duties of a UK wildfire tactical advisor. And I'm not going to go through them, there's far too many, but what you will see, it says at the bottom, this isn't an exhaustive list. Because we have knowledge, and we will be called upon to give this knowledge, there's a lot of stuff that we can be asked to do. And because of this, and because of the way our fires are getting bigger, our fires are burning for longer, the next phase, and this is where this project and how we move forward is so important. So we have our tactical advisor in the command suite. We have then our tactical advisors on the incident ground. And the next part of this now is a remote wildfire analyst. Someone who is remote, who can look at what is going on and has the time, and not just the time, but the connectivity. A lot of our fires in rural areas, we can't get a laptop out, we can't look at the really good maps, we can't look at the up-to-date weather, because we're in GPS black spots, we're in telecommunication black spots. So it's really important, and you all know when we've trained with this, it's much easier to work in an office situation than be on the incident ground with the smoke and all the different conditions we're up against, the noise. So this is really important. And again, so just a few of these. So the duties of a tactical advisor. So again, the capability, give advice to incident commander, review the location of safety officers, really critical. And that's something that's got to be done on the incident ground. I can't be in my house or in my office on my laptop looking at that. That will not work. But there are other things that we can do remotely, such as review the weather forecast, 12, 24, 36, 48 hours, and then analyse the fire development. And that is a role where I really think we can embed this and make it a lot better, make it a lot safer for not just our firefighters, but also communities. And then, but this is all really important that we get the ground truth from the incident ground, coming back to the fire analyst and vice versa. So this is really important communication. But we can do this on radio, we can do it via SMS. We don't need such good connectivity that we need to have Wi-Fi signals, etc. This is an example of some of the stuff we've done. This is quite it's not a huge fire, it was 50 hectares, but this was in a community, in a valley, so you can imagine the smoke sitting in the valley. I attended the incident, I flew over the incident. We are very fortunate, we have a helicopter. I flew over the incident in the helicopter and then went back and did a remote assessment of what was. You can get the good weather, we can get the maps, and then spoke to the incident commander. We also have a landowner engagement officer who will attend these incidents. I spoke to them, and we could get machinery, we could get bulldozers, and we then made a plan and formulated the plan. But working remotely was so much easier, and this plan, then I can send this plan, WhatsApp the plan, and we can make these things better. So this is actually working for us, and if it weren't for the benefits of working together and learning these things, we wouldn't be able to do these things. This is, and this is moving on again now. I see the first part, AFAN, was about response and about fire analysis, and I think there is a prevention side of this, and that's quite important as well. And when we try to embed this now, which we will hopefully across the UK with our tactical advisors, and then we'll work remotely as well to support them. And then in the future, this is what we hope we can do with these tools that we are learning through this partnership working. So this is an area in the South Wales. This is the Brecon Beacons National Park, or part of it. And when we talk about polygons and potential fire polygons, this is 5,000 hectares, over 5,000 hectares, and this is a water catchment area. This is where our drinking water comes from for 1.5 million people. In this very large water catchment, it's very wet, it's very difficult to get access to with vehicles, and this is the upland, so it's high, and again, very little connectivity for mobile phones and things like this. And the problem we have with these fires in these areas is, this is north of a town called Merthyr Tydfil. Merthyr Tydfil was part of the Industrial Revolution with steel, and where steel was basically made to fund the start of the Industrial Revolution. And a lot of pollution that came out of this process is now sitting on this deep peat. So this whole area is an area of deep peat. Now we have fires on this area, and luckily we haven't yet had a summer fire which has burnt into the peat, because the potential there is to release that pollution which is sitting in the peat into our watercourses, which could be catastrophic. This feeds approximately 1.5 million people with water. So this is where the prevention side of it, we can start working and understanding. This is the same area. This was a fire in 2017. It burnt 800 hectares. This was 2020. It burnt 1,200 hectares. It's the same area. This is this was the 1,200 hectare fire, and this then is, sorry, the date is wrong. This is 2022, and we had another fire which burned 1,600 hectares. So we've had 3 fires in 5 years in the same location, and they're getting bigger and getting bigger. And this is, even though the fires they're not yet burning the peat because the area is so wet, but then we have the risk of climate change, and what that will bring we don't know yet. But these are very large fires, very difficult to extinguish, because you cannot drive vehicles on this ground. You will just disappear into the bog. So we have to do something. So and starting to understand the process of how these fires, and a little bit of fire investigation, and understand the fires generally starting at the same location. And these large fires are generally driven by an easterly wind, which is a dry wind coming off continental Europe. And what happens is the fire runs across, depending on the dryness of the season, depends if the forestry area here burns. This year we didn't have the fire into the forestry, but in previous years we have. And then the fire spreads out, so these are flanking fires spreading out across this large landscape. Now, this year we managed to stop the fire at 1,600 hectares. Now, this is very difficult, it's a difficult access, but not only are we fighting this fire, we have another 10 fires burning at the same time, which are very large as well. But we've also got a fuel management problem. So, looking to work in the future with our landowner engagement officer, and looking to work with the land managers, the landowners, about how we can break this up using the water courses, which are here, and then the valleys. You can see the valleys, because we can't keep having very large fires in these areas, because at some point something will go wrong, whether they'll burn into the peat or whether there'll be erosion issues. But we can't just keep having these huge fires, and not just that, the pollution from the smoke into the valleys and the long-term effects of that. So again, the future, I said we've constantly been evaluating, evolving. Since 2009, so we've had Category 1 and Category 2 wildfire incidents. Category 1 is a small fire. Category 2 means there's more resources, and we send a trained wildfire officer to the incident to help with the planning. And now we see there's a need, we're moving to Category 3 fires. So in 2022 we're introducing, because these fires are becoming larger and longer duration, and we will embed in the command team, we will have a UK Welfare Tactical Advisor, so we have 4 in our service. We will have planning officers, so wildfire planners. We will have a wildfire engagement officer. We have our Natural Resources Wales, which is part of the Forestry Commission. We will have their duty officer there who can help with bringing on heavy equipment, bulldozers, excavators, etc. We will also embed our community safety team. So we have a fire crime team who go around trying to stop arson fires, and not just in wildfire, but rubbish fires, property fires. We have a large arson problem, unfortunately. And we will bring these groups in, and this is about public reassurance, education, and just trying to make a difference, really. And we will also embed our media team. So we have a really good media team. And that's about getting the right messages out and getting a consistent message about what these problems are and how we are dealing with them. Because as you know, when there's a fire and there's social media, all these different messages go out, and it can be quite scary for people, confusing for people, and they're wondering why the fire's not going out. So we need to keep educating and keep on top of this. And then capacity building. It's really important. These relationships that we've built here now, these become lifelong relationships, and it's really important. And what we can do, and the UK as a whole can do, is work with our partners, and then we can adopt or adapt. And that's really important, is adopting ideas but adapting them to fit what we need. And that's what I see here. Nobody is with a team, and there's not one way to do fire analysis. We've all got different ways, and we're trying to put it together to adapt it for our own needs. And that's really important, and that's the future. We in South Wales are really fortunate. We've got a toolbox of tools. We've got a helicopter, we've got ATVs, we've got tactical burn teams, we've got wildfire officers, we've got a landowner engagement officer. We're used to fire, but we do realise these fires are potentially going to become worse. So this is now about embedding this and trying to help other services in the UK to upskill themselves and get better knowledge, because as we get better with fire analysis, then we sort of fall into a trap of, okay, we understand where the fire is going to go, we understand what the fire is going to do, but now we need a plan to put the fire out. And if you haven't got a toolbox, and your toolbox isn't full, then there's certain tools you can't use. So if there's a head fire burning towards a community, and you haven't got aerial resources, which we haven't got a lot of in the UK, and you haven't got a tactical burn team, so you can't put fire on the ground, you haven't got cutting machinery, then what do you do? And you end up standing on the roadway with firefighting jets and hoping you can stop the fire. And it sometimes works for us, and it sometimes doesn't. But as fires change, and as you have seen in the warmer countries, that's not a practice that is sustainable, and that's not going to work. So we need to fill our toolbox as much as we can. Finally, we talk a lot, and the fire paradox of firefighting trap. And I think this is really important, especially for the UK. We understand that however good we become at firefighting, however more bits of equipment, tools we have, there is still a chance the fire is going to become bigger, because the quicker we put out fires, the more vegetation potentially is to burn. So as well as getting into communities, asking people to stop lighting fires, which obviously we can't just have people wandering around our communities lighting fires, we also need to do something with the vegetation, because the less fires we get, and we're already seeing this in South Wales, we're getting less fires, but we're getting bigger fires. So, and that's why fuel management to our service is quite important, and working with our land manager colleagues. And we do need to overcome this issue. Yes, we need to reduce ignitions, but we need structured and financed fuel management policies, as well as good trained firefighters. And these things must be together. They can't be separate, and you can't have one without the other. And I'll leave you with probably one of my favourite quotes, but I think this is really important, and people really need to understand this. The UK Fire and Rescue Service have been really, really good at driving down accidental property fires, house fires, road traffic collisions, and we're really good at seeing a problem and then driving the problem down, and statistics. We're very good on statistics and looking at problems and solving problems. The problem with wildfire is, by reducing the number of fires, you don't make anybody safer. It can be the reverse. So this is really important message moving forward as we get better at firefighting in the UK and fire analysis and all these parts of it. We've still got to understand that fire will still be a problem and we need to do something with it. And I hope it was of interest, and thank you very much. And again, thank you so much for this partnership that we have formed, because it's really important. And moving forward, this is the future. We need to do more of this. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. I have not really been involved in the AFAN project, so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come and participate in the last couple of days, and to give this overview of the Fire In project. So as mentioned, my primary job is at the European Forest Institute, located in Bonn, Germany, and working in-house with the Paucosta Foundation has allowed me to continue on with the Fire In project since I was able to be there from the start of it in 2017. We're now 5 years into the project, and it'll be wrapping up this year. But with these longer projects, oftentimes the turnover is high within the different organizations, so it was a privilege to be able to be there from the beginning and into its conclusion, because it helps with having an opportunity to work throughout the different phases of a project, and then also make sure that the outcomes of projects are then discussed and continued and taken up in other projects. And with a long project, you have that opportunity, because then you usually end up working in many other projects, and to keep that continuity is always a great thing. So I didn't know that was in it. So I'm not going to go too far into the whole Fire In project. It's a large project, so to say, with 5 different thematic areas, and I'm just going to focus on the landscape fire crisis mitigation thematic working group. But the idea of the project is it was a research and innovation project, and so the idea was to essentially improve the mission of the project is to improve the national and European fire and rescue capability development process. And to do that, basically first we were gathering inputs from practitioners on the 5 thematic areas, and identifying and defining the different capability gaps, but at a common level. So going back to here, obviously this is a very diverse range of different thematic areas, and so in the end, fire and rescue services have to respond to all of these. And so which gaps can we share, or do we share, and which ones can we work together to define? And then after that was screening of solutions, so then to interact with other, with private sector, with academia, with other communities out there to define, okay, what solutions might there be out there, and how can we integrate them? Fire and Rescue Services, it's a very stubborn organization. The burden of proof of concept is extremely high, because as a first responder, your life and those of your colleagues and other people's lives are in the balance. So testing some new technology or some new way of doing things is a very, it's not a friendly environment to do that. And then the final phase of the project right now is request for ideas. What other ideas can we gather in this context? And also for the standardization agenda for the European Commission. In the very first phase of the project, we this common capability definition, we kind of found these 7 different common capability challenges, and we were able to categorize them into this these 4. The way it works now, into the 4 different categories here. So all of this is on the Fire In website, so if you want to go in and explore each one of these individually. Later on, we actually defined an 8th challenge, and that's the human factors or human dimension, which is also a common challenge. So as mentioned, for the thematic working group, vegetation fire, basically to analyze the drivers and underlying causes of our challenges within this environment, and looking also broader at vulnerability, at resilience, at some of these other topics. The tendency in the very beginning was to kind of view this as, or the impression we got was that we were really supposed to look for kind of these innovations and technologies and stuff like that. And in our first kickoff meeting, we actually had hours-long discussion about how to even define innovation, and realizing that innovation is also exchange, and what's innovative for one country, might be standard practice in another country. So in the first couple of cycles, so this is between 2018 and 2019 approximately, we basically, within our thematic working group, we've defined these 8 key challenges. So first one being uncertainty. This is also, as you may remember, part of the matrix, one of the main things. So these low frequency, high impact events. Now, it's been 5 years since, and we've had, I would say, higher frequency, high impact events now. And that's something that we're seeing all around the world, not just in Europe. But basically, a challenge there is to define where to invest. So if you have, this event that's going to happen, it's going to happen, you don't know where though. So where do you invest your resources? How do you define criteria for what it comes down to is resilience, and how do you invest in that? Which areas do you choose? And then the implementation obviously is what costs a lot in terms of resources, in terms of money, in terms of personnel, which brings us to spending. Yeah. So another key challenge we saw was how there's always money for responding to a disaster, right? But we've been fighting for years for more funding in prevention. And if we ask for, for instance, exchanges, if we ask for funding to have an exchange, let's call it ad hoc, not a part of some project, we don't have funding for that. But another form of exchange is what happens when you all respond to an emergency together under UCPM. Well, there's money for that. And so we need to find ways to be able to invest in this whole cycle of response, but in the preparedness area. It was also kind of identified that the relative effectiveness of aircraft versus the money spent on aircraft was not quite proportional. Some of you may know the AFU study that was conducted in the US is the largest study of its kind, over 10 years long. And basically, after they did it, they buried some of the results because what came out of it was not so politically attractive, and that was basically that large aircraft is really not cost effective at all. So these are areas that we're having improvements. Another deficit that was identified in this area was even like when it comes down to the training of pilots and stuff like that. So we have countries that are newly becoming prone to fires, but their pilots don't have the type of experience in fighting fires like some of the others. But then they might be deployed in a context where they're assisting in a whole different type of fire. Which brings me to the third point, interoperability. So we have, just even in our own national systems, we have so many barriers to interoperability, whether it's via jurisdiction, whether it's via culture. In Germany, for instance, if it's a fire, the fire service, it's all about the fire service, right? It doesn't matter if it's burning in terrain that they're not used to operating in. It doesn't matter if it's affecting other jurisdictions, if it's in forest land in grassland and national park or whatever. So some countries, they have that divided up by, take the US, they have a response divided by whose land authority it is. And so we have many examples in, across Europe where some of our systems aren't just set up to respond appropriately to wildfires. And then it gets more complex as we're having more transboundary incidents. We're having, UCPM deployments are going way up in terms of wildfire just in the last few years. And yeah, how do you operate? We've had some discussions also about over the last couple of days. We talked about the deployment in Sweden. But when you have these 24 different states and languages, and also the 6 additional participating states, it's a huge challenge. And to overcome this diversity of national crisis management systems, and then all the way down to, that's management level, but you get down to the technical level. When you have a fire truck and you're responding from Germany to the Netherlands and you drive across the border, are you going to be able to hook up to the hydrant, or is your hardware different? So there's really varying levels to this interoperability, and it's going to come up several times again, and training. So many fire departments, even countries that have been dealing with wildfires for decades, that does not mean that they actually have basic training in wildland firefighting. It just means that their departments have been tasked with responding to fires. But that doesn't mean that they're doing it in a way that's founded on any sort of common understanding or training. Planning, so should be in the middle there. Development, so land use, land management plans, going into wildfire disaster risk reduction. We just don't have the preparedness when it comes to landscape level for the fires we're seeing, which is obviously ties into many other topics I'll bring up in a second here. But it comes down to landscape resilience. We have in Eastern Europe and in the Mediterranean, we have these rural exodus issues where the land's not being managed anymore. The operative word there is fuel. We can't change the weather. We can't change ignition. We can change a little bit of ignition sources. Can't change the topography, but we can change the fuel, and that's really what it comes down to when we talk about planning. So going back to this discussion about what is innovation, there was, throughout all of the activities that we organized, there was just this consistent sentiment that it was expressed that we don't want robots or drones or whatever. Yes, that might be a useful tool, and we, since this project started, one has to say that the integration of these technologies has seen a huge uptick. So now we've gotten a little bit over this hump of this burden of proof for some of these newer technologies. But in the end, it comes back to we know so much in general within the fire community, and not that one country or context holds all the knowledge, but between us, we have so much knowledge and so much experience in fire that the real frustration is the fact that it's not fully applied or integrated in a way that we know needs to happen. And so this notion of innovation being of exchanges and having these opportunities like we've had over the past few days to get together to say, let's see how the Italians do it, let's see how the Catalans do it, and to be able to work together. This is the innovation, this is the applied science. We don't necessarily need more studies on what fire does in pine forest. We know that, right? I'm not saying that there's not a role for science in how we operate. There is, but the emphasis clearly, according to the feedback we've received through these processes, has to come from these exchanges. That being said, this fire ecology topic, right? Fire ecology, we have really an opportunity to learn more and improve more and understand how fire is impacting our landscapes. We're in a dynamic environment with climate change, and that's a cascading effect of whether it's invasive species, whether it's drought. We have all these issues. So actually applying fire ecology integrating into our systems of fire suppression or fire response is a necessary step. Rural exodus. So I mentioned this already, but we have a bit of a split trend here. So we've had these incidents that were very high profile, whether it was Mati in Greece, where you can really see these trends and what the result is, where you have people on the one hand leaving the countryside, moving to cities, and on the other hand, the people that are in the countryside at any given moment might be weekenders or vacationers, or people might have their second homes there, and they don't necessarily have the same relationship to the land anymore, and the same risk culture, and the same ability to be careful or to feel responsible for the land that they're in and on. And so coming back to fuel, I mean, that's the operative word again, is fuel. So we have these overgrown landscapes now in many areas. And the people that are remaining are, it's a net aging population. And this is also an area where fire response is based off of volunteers. So you have aging volunteers. The ability for these areas to actually cope with, severe fires from an operations standpoint is decreasing, and at the same time the complexity and the severity of the events occurring in these landscapes are increasing dramatically. Which brings us back to the people, right? This community awareness and safety. We have this culture where basically first responders are made responsible for all of our problems. We often just assume that if there's a fire, burning on our land, that someone's going to come and put it out and save us. And if we look around the world, there are probably more examples of that culture. At the same time, we do have, take Australia, where after the traumatic events of a few years ago, they had a paradigm shift. They realized, no, we have to make it extremely clear to the citizens of this country that they are responsible for managing their landscapes, and they're responsible for their own safety if and when it burns. And so we talk about sheltering in place. That issue has come up in the scenarios that we had the last few days. So it's really important that we have this increased awareness and responsibility in our safety culture. And then decision maker awareness. So decision makers and policymakers there are, their job is to basically respond to the pressures from society. And when it comes to wildfire dialogues, this is a cycle that's also heavily influenced by the media. And I always kind of thought, oh, the media reports on what the decision makers do. And I've come to, in my experience, learn that it's actually the other way around, that decision makers respond to what is portrayed and framed in the media. And so that was definitely something that came up many times, just to not underestimate the power of working with the media, and really being careful about what message goes out, whether it's about prevention, whether it's about evacuation, whether it's any of these areas where you have this information going out to the public. You have this feedback with the policy community. We've seen this kind of misplaced priorities in terms of investing in more response. I think at European level, we've finally transitioned now into funding being often more aimed at prevention measures and integrated approaches. That being said, you still have, I'll take the country where I live now, that's Germany. You still have a response generally, which is to invest in bigger fire engines with carrying more water and not invest in training and landscape management and those sorts of areas. So, like I mentioned, there were several cycles to this. So now looking more into the future, we have this command and control issue that we need to work on. It comes up every time there's a deployment. There's many opportunities for improvement. There's discussions about whether the U.S. incident command system is something that we want to look at how to adapt. What if we had a European command system? Something that is on the top. We can't change national command systems, and we shouldn't. That's a losing fight right there. But we'll need something on top. In Sweden, we use NATO. So there's room for improvement there for sure. We need more competency-based training, technical standardization. We have the science is out there. We know where we're headed, and we need to be able to be prepared. Once again, risk perception and community engagement to meet these challenges, to anticipate these challenges. We talked about self-protection, so withstanding fire, living with fire and not, responding to it. This is a cultural issue, which we have shelter in place, which is, the norm in some countries, particularly in the Mediterranean region. But now if we have situations where we have countries being impacted by fires that don't construct their homes the same way, then that's not an option. So we have a lot of different, areas to look at. Investing in landscape level. So I talked about fire ecology. We now see more, smart grazing practices, the integration of livestock back into landscape management in the framework of fire management. And we do anticipate that, there's a lot of research now on like pyrocumulus, pyrosieves. So we've kind of gotten to the point where we recognize as a global community that our fire behavior challenges that we have today, we're just not equipped to deal with them in most cases. So we do need more work in that area. We need more prescribed burning at landscape level. So it's a drop in the bucket what we actually managed to accomplish in terms of prescribed burning. One of those areas where we have the firefighters to respond to the fire, but we don't have the people to actually do the the fuel reduction or the prescribed burning necessary. And yeah, we just have to be able to anticipate these problems. We know they're coming towards us, and we need to really reframe how we fund fire management in general. And that will require really a paradigm shift in how we think. So not this backward-looking approach of how many, with the report that comes out every year, right? It's all about the numbers. It's all about how many acres burned, how many people died. We don't have reports about how many acres we made fire resilient. We don't have this forward-looking approach, and that's really a mental construct. We need to create value in our landscapes to get people back in there to reappreciate them. Am I out of time? So, as mentioned, part of Fire In is also to offer these inputs for the standardization agenda. And so, just to go over the top points that we came out with for our thematic working group. Once again, this interoperability issue. So, working in particular, the aerial firefighting thing has come up a number of times. The more catastrophic events that we have with multiple country deployments, I think the better we are on that point. Unfortunately, that's how it works, but there are always opportunities for peacetime exchanges, and we need to support these. These standard emergency information systems, so it's another area that needs more work, but there's already, advancements there. So many, particularly in the Mediterranean region, in the summer months, there's a lot of tourists, there's a lot of, transient populations, and are they able to be, connected into an evacuation scenario or be informed appropriately or be able to follow the signs? So that's, definitely a need that we will have, especially with these more, catastrophic fires that we're seeing. And so these, maps and symbols, not just for the public, but also then for responders. So if, the Italian guys go over to help the Spanish, when they look at a map, are they going to understand it the same way? And that was something that we got to practice here the last couple of days where, okay, well, this is this kind of road, or this is this fuel type, or whatever. So having an approach where we can really be interoperable, also for a planning perspective. Fire weather. So this is a kind of a new discipline where there's a lot of work going on. There's a lot We realized in the past few years that we didn't know about weather, and now as we're having more extreme weather events all around the world and how those interact with fire events that are concurrent at different levels of the atmosphere, at prolonged drought, what that does, whether we use indices for ground moisture or fuel moisture. So the models that we're using today primarily were developed 40, 50 years ago. And that's what we're still using today. So we do have some room for improvement, and then to make that standardized so that we're all operating from the same perspective when it comes to environmental factors that in the end should be understood the same. So I think basically I already hit the national coordination and interoperability. We have so many examples now where we have to work across borders, across different jurisdictions, between regions which experience different climates, and these are always areas for improvement. A fire in one context is not like another context, and people have different experiences. So looking in the future, we need this harmonization. Like I said, we're working on it. It's an opportunity every time there is a deployment, but once again, to harp on that point, we need these exchanges to happen, and we need sustained funding to be able to have these exercises, and not only in a crisis situation. In the end, it comes down to landscape resilience, which is people, right? So we're talking about risk culture, we're talking about how we move. So I always say effective fire management is effective people management, because you take us out of the equation and nature would correct itself, nature would do its thing in respect to fire. So it really comes down to people management. We have these worst case scenarios that some countries are preparing for because they've had them already. And you have other situations. I took this a picture about 10 days ago. This is in the Austrian Alps, where there was extreme fire behavior on this fire in the Alps. And the fire was about a month ago. So the idea that we, on the one hand, in our own context, are having new worst case scenarios, but now that we're all working together as a European community, and even internationally, outside of Europe, it's important to understand that not only do we have to prepare for our worst case scenario in our country, we need to prepare for the worst case scenario because we might be in that situation somewhere else. So if, in the German fire service saying, if you try and tell them, prescribed burning or tactical fire or crown fire, whatever, they might say, well, that's not really our problem yet. I mean, we don't really have to deal with that. But then they will be driving across Europe to go in someone's worst moment in another country and have to be helpful and not a burden on the system. So even if you're not seeing that type of extreme event in your own context, it's still important to at least have the understanding of what the requirements are to operate in an extreme context and somewhere else, which comes down to the training. And we have so many deficiencies in training, and it's kind of blew me away because there was like so many countries that have been dealing with fires for so many years, and then when I actually started to ask about it, do you have training for wildland? Do you have wildland firefighters, first of all? Do you have training on wildland fire? No. So this is really, I think, one of the biggest gaps that we have in Europe, where we just don't have any sort of basic training. There's only 3-4 countries that actually have training on wildfire specifically. And yeah, finally, we know these scenarios are coming, and we need to be able to equip our responders with the equipment they require. A lot of it's aging, falling apart. It's a constant battle, and we need to work across disciplines. Integrated fire management we need to involve the foresters. So these kind of traditional barriers or cultures, how we think, fire is only the responsibility of the fire service, we recognize that we really need to integrate landowners, foresters, farmers, all the above, meteorologists. So I mean, it's a really discipline thing. The opportunities that we have is we have no shortage of knowledge, so take your pick on what topic you want to work on, right? We have a lot to work on. And yes, you know, these new fire-prone countries, they are at a disadvantage because they have to adopt to a situation that has otherwise been foreign to them. But sometimes a clean slate could be better than trying to force a paradigm shift. Like if you look west where I'm from, trying to force a paradigm shift when you have an entire country whose structure and system is based on suppressing fire to then, you know, have basically change it to a prevention approach is extremely difficult. So while some of us are not yet used to living with fire, as we always say, we have in these new contexts the opportunity to reshape the culture about fire, to have this positive understanding of fire and appreciation for the role fire plays in our landscapes. So yeah, the opportunity to progress in a collaborative cross-border manner. This is where these projects are important and where these exchanges are important. So these are always, you know, so valuable for moving forward as a European community. As we recognize this gap in the training area, it's an opportunity to create a more harmonized approach for training. So because, you know, it's not that every country has its own wildfire training program, only a few do. So we have an opportunity to put our heads together and pick the best approaches and put them together and offer that up in the context and work together as countries, because when we then deploy across border, we want to know that we have a tactical and operational understanding that's founded on a common understanding of the things that we train on. We can see around the corner, so we can plan ahead. That's always an opportunity. We can sidestep past mistakes, so we can look at how the U.S. did fire management wrong for a century, and we can choose to do it differently, particularly for those countries that are just now starting to deal with fire, you know, like the Netherlands or whatever. So once again, peacetime exchanges, this collaboration and networking, this is driven by passion and vision. Everybody in this room, you're here because you're passionate about the fire topic, right? Not every area of society can say that. I think that's a really unique area about, you know, that the wildfire community is really held together by this common vision and this passion for the topic, and that is an absolute important resource. It's integrated fire management is a work in progress, but we do see these strides moving forward. We do have many, many success stories. We're now at a position where we're having actors work together that just never considered working together before. And so that is an amazing opportunity. And finally, we have unprecedented funding and political attention on this topic now. Those of you who've been in this game for a while probably remember the day where it was like calling into the forest alone. Like there was just echoes when it came to trying to have recognition for the importance of wildland fire management. And now we're finally getting this recognition within our own countries from the European Commission. So we really have just a level of funding and support that we haven't had up until this point. And so that, I think, deserves to be acknowledged. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. My question is for Craig. First of all, Craig, just to let you know that we didn't have any rain for months here, so we are very thankful that you bring some rain from Wales.
Welsh Canada.
Anyway, thanks for your presentation. My question is, it looks like you are kind of 34 tactical advisor, something like that, and you kind of mentioned that you would cross the UK and go in any fires, probably not only in your own fire service. My question is, how do you succeed in building trust with incident commander? I mean, I'm just thinking of an incident commander seeing some guy from another fire service in our region arriving and giving him some advices on how he should manage his fires and maybe how the fires will behave in his own regions, which he would think that he's the one he knows the best. So how do you succeed in building this trust, and do you have some reluctancy of the incident commanders?
So there are 45 tactical advisors, I think it's 45 47 tactical advisors currently in the UK, spread across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and England, and it's all about trust. It's about building trust. We use the same incident command systems in the UK, but it's about using simple knowledge, simple language, and we are going to services who are in need, so they're generally welcoming us. We don't enforce we don't tell people we're attending, we're asked to attend, and that's quite important as well. And the team we went live in July of 18, and we were mobilised virtually straight away. I think we actually were mobilised before we went live, but it was a matter of days. And I think across the UK now we have tactical advisors for a lot of strands of the work we do, such as high volume pump, CBRN, and all these different skills. And I think UK fire services are now used to getting really good, helpful information from tactical advisors. So as long as you put yourself across in a professional manner, you explain, and I think these things work. I went to Dorset, a large fire, Wareham Forest. There was the fire blew up on the Friday. I requested, or through the way the fire service works, they wanted a tactical burn team to put the fire out. So it goes up to the National Coordinating Centre and back down. My service sent the tactical burn team. I went on to the incident ground. I made the plan how we would do tactical burn. I briefed the incident commander. Now you imagine it's an incident commander who's never seen a tactical burn, but he knows he's got 25 fire engines on the incident ground and they can't put the fire out. They've got a helicopter. The helicopter we use in Wales, that was deployed as well through the Forestry Commission side, and it's all about trust, but it's about having that depth of knowledge. I'm fortunate, my journey has made me very experienced in what I do and the capabilities, and I'm confident in my abilities. But when you explain to somebody, I'm now going to set 3 kilometres of your forest on fire, but the fire will go out, it does take a lot of trust. But it is about trust, and the fire service pulled all the fire engines out of the forest. 4 of us or 6 of us went in and lit the fire and put the fire out. And by the next day, the fire was out. So when people see things like this and then they debrief these things, you gain more trust. But you've got to be very careful that it's small steps and you bring out all of your team on board. Because again, these things, you can do everything right a lot of times, but with one mistake, and you'll only have to be remembered for that one mistake. And that's critical.
I have a question myself for Frederic. Seeing that we are foreseeing and expecting more complex in wildfires in orders of magnitude higher in Europe, in Mediterranean countries, can you develop a little bit more on your fire analysis strategy here and how you see it going forward here in your region?
Juste pour préciser votre question, vous voulez avoir une réponse par rapport à la stratégie de lutte ou par rapport à la stratégie d'analyse?
The analysis, yeah.
Analyse. Alors, on travaille donc, je le disais, en partenariat avec Météo France et l'Office national des forêts. Eux-mêmes, de leur côté, développent des outils plus perfectionnés sur l'analyse météorologique, l'analyse des feux. Donc, on croise ces données-là Et c'est vrai que aujourd'hui, les retours d'expérience qu'on en tire nous permettent aussi de faire évoluer nos produits et d'avoir des retours plutôt positifs sur l'utilisation de certains produits. Donc on reste quand même sur des données très, très modélisées, très théoriques, mais derrière aussi, avec l'Office national de la forêt qui réalise certaines études sur le terrain, certains prélèvements sur le terrain, on arrive aussi à regrouper ces données-là. Et demain, effectivement, il y aura encore nécessité d'aller rechercher encore plus près sur le terrain et de manière plus fine l'évolution de la sécheresse pour pouvoir avoir encore une réponse plus précise sur le territoire et sur le comportement des feux. Ça suffit. Ok.
Any more questions in the room?
Maybe a question for you. You evoked the worst case scenario, and I was wondering if this particular workshop, AFAN, does not demonstrate that it's very difficult to achieve, to imagine what is worst case scenario. Even in France, you know, we have difficulties to imagine the worst case.
Your question specifically?
My question is how to proceed, especially in Germany, for example.
Yeah. Well, the thing that we can do is train, right? We can train, and we can train based on real situations, and we can train based on simulated situations. And so if we train together and repetitively, then when we do get in that situation, it's just like any firefighter, they train for a bad situation and to be able to do that. And now the challenge that we have today is that we're not only working at a local level now. We're working with multiple countries, jurisdictions, working with fires crossing borders or resources crossing borders to get to the fire. And the resources that we have at our fingertips, we're not using all of them yet. And so one of the things we're doing in Germany, for instance, is pulling in all these other actors that up until this point in time have never had anything to do with fire. And maybe from an administrative standpoint or a political standpoint, it's still not feasible for them to even be present if there is a fire. But it's a culture that we're trying to change, to have landowners and look at the cycle of the fire, look at the entire cycle from prevention, preparedness, all the way through to response and recovery. And if you look at that whole cycle, how many different sectors and actors and stakeholders are involved in that full cycle? Because right now we've only really focused on the response side. And while we can't really expect our fire services to address all aspects of that cycle, in the end, the firefighter has his job, so to say. But they can train, and we can do these scenarios together with all the different stakeholders. And in my opinion, that is the way forward to address the worst case scenario, because the worst case scenario is going to affect all of us, not just the fire service, right? And if we can work together and figure out what the other person can do that helps us, then we have an opportunity to move forward. Whereas if we're only responding based on our own competencies and capabilities, then we're missing a huge part of the picture.
There are some questions from the the audience connected remotely. Philippe, please.
Yes, just a question, and perhaps not only a question, it's more perhaps an information for Lindon. You were talking about the problem of standardization, notably, and just to inform you that, and Teresa, that some jobs are done to standardize some of the elements of forest fire. And for example, there is at this moment Another European project that is linked, in fact, with AFAN job, about the standardization of the information on the maps and on the tactical situation in the command post. So it's a part of what you said during your presentation, and I think that all these bricks of the European project at the moment will be mixed together to build what you expect in your presentation, a global vision in Europe of management of forest fire. And this project is really linked with that too. And we have a question from Pedro Sanchez, and the question is, how could we articulate cooperation channels to help remotely and access to an on-field real-time data to be able to perform analysis remotely? And there is a second one, if you want to answer the two at the same time. What would it be the responsibility and liability of an analyst cooperating remotely? Excuse me. What would it be the responsibility and liability of an analyst cooperating remotely? Thank you.
I think more will be discussed this afternoon about this and the framework, but I think again it comes back to what Sebastian said. It's about trust, and it's about we're only giving an analysis. It's up to then the incident command team to make a plan on what we are suggesting, but it's only a suggestion of what will happen. Nothing is really 100% fact, and that's important when you put these messages across. This is a prediction of what will happen, but you can't always guarantee what's going to happen. But that's why you need trust within the incident command teams, and when we all work together, it's all about trust.
There is one more question from Ove Stockland. Could we include more standardization on equipment, amount, type and interoperability in the forest fire modules in the voluntary pool? I feel we develop different due to lack of standardization. It's linked again with standardization. And another question from Ove. In addition, could the forest fire analyst be a standard requirement in the modules? I don't know who could answer. Perhaps Linda?
I mean, in the end, the answer is always yes. I mean, we always have room for improvement. We can always, on the one hand, you don't want to make things too complicated by having too many modules, too many requirements, too many standards, right? Because then in the end, what actually gets used or implemented is based then on the personal profile of the people involved. But if we can develop these profiles and we can develop the fundamental training that the people have, then we can move forward in a way where the standardization, broadly speaking, is something that occurs on its own, not because some body has determined that that's what the standard needs to be. And that's a really important distinction to make within this standardization discussion. Are we talking about professional codes and standardizations, ISO, whatever, or are we talking about operational standardization that has occurred organically because people have been working together and figuring out, oh, you know, we're going to supply. So now coming to this, the question of volunteers, for instance, you know, if the more you work together, the more you recognize what does work and what doesn't work. And if you can, for instance, have more opportunities to train together, then you realize, oh, our supplier that we use for our hose, as an example, is not compatible with what the, you know, this agency or this other organization is using. So in the end, it is a free market, and there are many products available. So the more we work together, the more we have an idea of which products we can all use together, you know, to use that really technical, operational level. then we can see from there.
Je vais proposer à Teresa de répondre, qui représente la Commission européenne.
Maybe Teresa will represent.
Yes, just to say that we know from the lessons learned from the deployment that there is room to improve, in particular for the equipment. So we are aware and we are looking at improve the equipment in particular, because there is a gap for module coming from different member states. So we are taking into account this need.
Merci Teresa. Avons-nous d'autres questions? Non? Eh bien, écoutez, je vous propose de faire une petite pause et on se retrouve à 11h, dans une demi-heure. Merci beaucoup.
Hello everyone, welcome back. We are now going to start the second half of this event. Before the coffee break, we had this first session where the key challenges were discussed, and I think that was really interesting to see where we are and what we are having for the future. And now we're going to start a second session where we'll show how the AFAN, the Advanced Fire Analysis Network, has been working to solve or to address some of these challenges. Basically through getting the fire analyst community together and putting the basis of some common knowledge and common frameworks. So the first speaker of this session is Laia Estivill from the Catalan Fire and Rescue Service. And Laia is going to show us a work that has been done in AFAN, and now it's carried on in other projects. And yeah, Laia, I'll let you go for it.
Thank you, Nuria. As Nuria have said, one of the works done in AFAN, one of the works done in AFAN is the guidelines of fire analyst competencies and skills. We made a guide that is available online, and this has different outputs that we will show you now. These guidelines is made with the collaboration and with the opinions and ideas of the network. It has been said here and highlight the importance of these networks. The network used in a AFAN project is an existing one. We have not created any new network. It's only looking for that people that have the knowledge, that have the experience, that have dealt with situations. Perhaps these situations are different from one landscape to the other, one country to the other, but mainly they try to answer the same questions, the same ideas, the same challenges. So we have asked to these people to build these guidelines, trying to reach those points that make us at the same point, and bearing in mind that we all have different structures, we all have sometimes different landscapes, but we have similar needs and similar challenges. So there is a long list of people that we have consulted. You can check the specific list in the guidelines, but we have also asked people not in the project, because sometimes we are in the project because different reasons, but we have consulted also people from Norway and people from Chile that are not in the project, but to check that we gather different opinions and different ideas of the network, of the existing network. We have seen that the fire analyst, it's not a person that only has knowledge of some specific area, not like a specific person that has dedicated to one area and is an expert on that. Let's say someone coming from the research that could be specialist in one thing, but perhaps not have the whole framework. but it's a person or a team, depending. We have found a lot of teams working on this that accumulates a large experience, so it's not a theoretical knowledge. It has both knowledge accumulated by theory or out of the on-file, but also on-file experience. Who participates in the response phase? This is because it's linked to the decision making. His or her work or the team work is linked, has an impact or direct impact on this decision making, assumes responsibilities. So it's not like I'm outside of the whole framework and I give an opinion. It's not an opinion. It's an informed knowledge, a management of information. It's a creating of knowledge. So it's an added value more than an opinion. And is someone or a team that monitors continuously the fire season. It's not a person that arrives there, gives an opinion, and goes away. It's someone who monitors along the year, even sometimes along years, and has this feedback with different fires, with different situations on his background, or her background. How do we reflect the impact of the analysis contributions on decision making? Because this sometimes is confusing. In the guidelines, we have tried to link the contributions of the fire analysts to the needs of the organizations, because here is where perhaps coming from different places we can join, because more or less the challenges, as we have seen also in firing project, in firing project there are a lot of people, but they arrive to some similar challenges in European scope. So we have tried to use this idea also in the guidelines, trying to find which are the needs of the organizations, which are the needs of these incident commands whom we will need to work with, and trying to detect which are the contributions that the fire analyst can make. This is an example of what we will find, what you will find in the guideline. On the top there is, for example, the main challenges, general challenges. Normally there is a need to plan measures, to dispatch for the response and give coordination, to guide the efforts, to solve the situation, and also tactical deployment. You can see that here there are some things that are inside wildfire, but others begin even before. So this work of fire analysts can begin before even the wildfire, and this is why we say that it's a monitorage further than the incident itself, the fire itself. And then we have tried to link and to give ideas about which is the contribution of fire analysts. So here you can say this way, a direct relation between the fire analyst work and the organization needs. Here is more detailed than that. So for example, you can have, or you can solve the need of preventing, to have prevention and protecting measures. So there are some work that fire analysts could contribute on that. And also we have tried to link these organizational needs with the decision-making impact. So in between, the work of fire analysts will contribute to that. So at the end, there is some part of impact in decision-making. So I'm not saying that all the responsibilities are on the fire analyst, but there is a lot of them in here. Sorry. Yeah. And another thing that we have included in the guidelines is examples of tasks that nowadays are done in organizations, in these teams. They are already doing some tasks, and we have tried to gather them as examples. It's not an exhaustive list, probably, with new scenarios, with this new extreme wildfires event, with this new situation. We will develop different tasks. We will manage others. But it's a first classification of them, of the ones that nowadays people are doing and proceeding. And we have created these thematic areas to group them. Impact of meteorology on fire behavior, fire perimeter, fire behavior, fire spread patterns, tactical planning, and strategy and scenario awareness. We have collected examples from the different partners, and we have tried to do like a graph to classify. It's a classification to see how is your scope, more or less. And we have linked these sort of tasks to the scopes of the decision-making process, following this idea that the contributions of fire analysis impact also on decision-making. So we have, this is a graph, and we have tried to link the different tasks and scopes to the capacity, position, vision, and mission that are typical from decision-making. So here you have a graph. This is only, it's only to know, to help organizations see to where they can spread their knowledge. But probably you will say, okay, you will say, how we link this to the skills, capabilities, and experience required. If you read the guidelines, you will find general issues. So we have reached a framework in this project, but it's not directly implementable. You have ideas about which are the contributions, which are the needs, and so on. But it's not directly implementable, so it's a start. There are a lot of them, but in a general way. So how we will implement it? We will do using other projects that are more focused on implementing things. In this case, we will use FireRest project, which is a project that has 35 partners and has begun in December of 2021, and addresses an integrated fire management strategy to obtain resilient landscapes. And this is linked with what Craig and Lindon have been said here. We cannot work only in fire analysis, avoiding the rest of the issues. So we need to have an integrated view of all this. We need to not only train fire analysts, but also train other people that will cope with the situation. So we will try to do this using this new project. So this is the aim of doing this is to continue the work done in the guidelines, so that this work that we have been done here, this network that we have created, don't disappear, to give continuation to all that we have started here. And in FireRest project is not only about fire analysts, it's a project that tries to have this wide scope. It's based on 4 pillars. One is the fire behavior, the other is emergency management, landscape and economy, and the final one is governance and communication, and awareness, rising awareness. So then there are different work packages as normal in this sort of projects. You see, one is an integrated approach to extreme wildfire events, adaptive territorial management, economic drivers toward fire resilience, landscapes, proactive governance, and advanced technologies, equipment, and decision support system. But the good point is that the project focuses on innovative actions. And as said by Lindon, innovative can be sometimes new for some countries, but not new for others. But here the idea is we can develop innovative things, but we can apply these innovations in other countries, and that way is innovative there. So, where we will put this knowledge coming from AFAN? Extreme wildfire events, we will focus on fire analyst and incident command to link this with AFAN. We have seen that for extreme wildfire events, we will need fire analysts specialized in extreme wildfire events that will be able to deal with fire management, with weather conditions, fire patterns, fire behavior, and atmosphere dynamics, and so on. This is knowledge that we have acquired from AFAN guidelines. And we will need incident commanders able to identify strategies, define objectives, settle priorities, and work together also with fire analysts. So our next step there is to create some trainings in which both will work together and will develop this trust, this connection that have been said here different times. So trying to boost this point. As said, this comes from the guide, but we will need to go one step further. So we will focus. You have seen that the topics of the project are really diverse, but I'm only focusing on the work that we will done for linked to fire analysis. We will develop a new training to develop skills and capabilities for incident commands and fire analysts focused on extreme wildfire events and with the National School of Portugal. So as has been said here, training is a key point. So we will try to invest on this also. We will pilot the adaptation of forest fire potential polygons to improve decision making in extreme wildfire events. We have seen these days also that fire potential polygons is a tool, not the only tool, but it's a tool that can be adapted to different scenarios and also to different situations. So we will try to write this and adapt it to these extreme wildfire events, following also the idea that have been raised here that we all together in having a European vision, we need to focus on these extremes, on these situations that can overwhelm us in a certain day. So we will try to adapt these potential polygons to these situations. You will use innovative tools for training schools to certificate ICS training programs, also with Tecnosilva and the School of National Portugal, and we will try to improve interoperability among international stakeholders. This also with the idea that, for example, when you need remote assessment from another country, it would be easy to transfer information from some fire analysts to the others. This will be implemented in a living lab also, and we will try to go beyond trying to include all these stakeholders. We will work with fire managers also, as Craig has raised up the importance of doing this, with journalists and with top officers of incident management teams. So the idea is to include more people in the team. So comparing and seeing the whole vision, in AFAN we have created this framework that makes it possible to identify these skills and capabilities for fire analysts, competences and skills. We have collected examples of the contributions of the different analyses and the impact that makes on decision making. We have collected the specific tasks that fire analysts today already do. So there is a work and knowledge that is available there. And our aim has been to include different ways to achieve the same fire analysis action. We have seen this in this workshop. We have seen how different people can arrive to more or less the same situation or the same result doing different procedures. So boosting this, it's an aim also. So in FireRes, we will go a step forward and we will try to have a more in-depth approach to competences. The focus will be posed on extreme wildfire events because it's the aim of the project, but I think that it could be useful also for other fires in any case. we will approach a wider range of stakeholders, namely whomever you consider better, fire analysts, incident commanders, fire managers. At the end, this will be the different team that we will have around. And we will try to implement through pilot cases in living labs. So having direct solutions or direct implementation. So not only writing about things, but trying to do final solutions. So this is what we have done in the guidelines, and also I hope that it's an example that how we will transfer all this work done in a AFAN project to the field.
So the objectives of we have interviewed a lot of experts that we want to thank, and we more or less we have seen that the main objective of the remote assessment activity is to give efficient and easy-to-use specific support with scenario analysis, to increase the capacity and the speed of analysis during the emergency, for helping mainly the incident commander and the ones that are involved with the decision making, to avoid also the unnecessary kind of information and the infotoxicity in the decision making process. So the noise that I was mentioning before. That information, that knowledge that that is provided for remote would have been it's better that it's made by operational staff for operational staff. So there are some opinions, some different opinions, but more or less this is the situation. One other important thing, a lot of experts agree that they would like to receive remote assessment only when they ask for that, because in the other case we have the risk to increase the noise and the confusion in the decision-making process. So other important thing is to do not overstep the established rules, because this is not a standardization, this is an harmonization, and each organization has its own procedures and responsibilities. So, to increase better wide cooperation among the networks that we have already seen, and consolidate good practices which have been useful, because when something is works well, we have to increase it. This is the definition that at the moment we have prepared for this kind of support. So remote assessment during wildfire emergencies is a support action carried out by an analyst or by a staff to provide situational awareness following a request with the development of products that are sent through shared channels. So this is to synthesize the concept of remote assessment. We have part a section in the first part of the deliverable. We are parting a section when we want to identify the contribution of remote assessment in the decision-making process. This we would like to do, linking this deliverable with the information provided by the deliverable about the guidelines of fire analysts. Where there is the table, there are the section of the needs, contribution, and impacts of the analysis in the decision-making process. So we would like to highlight also there where remote assessment can contribute. So here the topics that we have identified, we are parting in the deliverable. The first one is the communication flow and translation to the incident commander. We send and we receive, so the part of communication between the field and the remote. So we are finding some main highlights. So like a lot of experts retain that it would be better to be with the field fire analyst. So the figure that can translate it, the knowledge, the information to the incident commander, because not ever is present a person that could receive and absorb the information provided by them. So, if not present a field fire analyst with other field personnel, other methods about the communication could be the language for the international remote assessment, because the remote assessment could be from different countries, but also between the same organization, so an internal assessment from remote that already exists in some organization. But for the ones for the international support, there are some methods like the language, and others like the time frame that, if are not established, could be a topic to develop. So another topic is the minimum information to be asked and received from the field for the remote assessment activity. So to identify, we have asked to the experts what could be the main important information to ask it to the ones that are from remote, or to receive from the field for the ones that are on remote, like the perimeter and its status, the information about local weather, if who is from remote giving support doesn't know the local situation, the local websites, like where to know the local weather situation, photos and videos, and other information, also for knowing the organization capacities. So other things is the tools for doing for this activity, and build then the record to send on the field from remote, like satellites, GIS tools, GIS, Google Earth. One thing that we are seeing is that a lot of experts would like to have all these tools, all this kind of information available in one tool. We have seen that some organizations, for their internal support, have created like a portal with all this information available in the same portal, but not everybody. So it's something that is even useful. This because currently we are using the technology more to explain what is happening than to explain what will happen. This is also other focus point that we are facing in the guidelines. Other topic is the products. So we will put some examples about remote assessment product already that already the organizations are doing in their internal activity, or that have been already done in international support between different countries. So there is some focus point to study or to improve. Someone of the experts have been thinking that it could be better standardized product to provide, but a lot of other experts are agreeing that it could be better to have an adaptable product. When I say product, I mean a report of analysis of the fire behavior of the wildfire that they are analyzing from remote. So the information that could be present in each report, like weather forecast, atmospheric, fire behavior prediction, and other kind of information to give to the field. And here there are some different analysis from remote product provided by different countries. We can see that there could be present graphs, but also maps, and a lot of times brief phrases with the description of the ongoing situation and the next future for the next hour forecast. So, channels is about the channels that could be more useful to exchange the information, the most common channel, or also other dedicated channel for this kind of support. These are for the moment the main useful characteristic that we have seen from the interview that the expert asked for the channels, the accessibility, the free use of the channel, easy to use. Also, someone asked for the ability to exchange EV data, because depending on the kind of analysis that is given from remote. And last but not least, the responsibility, that is one of the topics that we also asked opinion for. And the responsibility is about what we have seen that are having most experts, is about for the choice made lies with those in the field. So it's something depending on each organization, because each organization is different in the procedures and also in the responsibility to address. But of course, from remote, a lot of personnel that have worked in the remote assessment activities agree that could be responsibility for the information provided, so it's something that we have to consider. Of course, we have seen that taking responsibility helps to develop more accurate products, so to be more awareness of what we are for remote they are doing and sending to the field. So, the final section of the guidelines will consider also past real cases, putting some real examples of remote assessment activities. We would like also to insert some linkages with past or in progress projects, European projects also, useful for developing this kind of activity. And the need for training to organize the remote assessment activity. So the post-fire analysis and some conclusion. Now I will go a little bit fast. These are only some highlights that we are collecting between all the workshops, all the interviews about the topics that we have seen and we are putting in the guidelines. So something that we have to be aware is that the information is already available all around. So we have the possibility to find each kind of information, but we have the due to be able to know how to use it in the decision-making process. This is a topic of the fire analysis in general, but also for the activity from remote. From remote, there is the need to know what want to do the ones on the field in order to help better the decision-making process. Also, for what I said before, this is about the question that is necessary from remote for having support. The question, necessary from the field for having support from the remote. So it's necessary if the ones that are on the field want really support in the decision-making process, a clear question for the ones that are for remote. So, this one. And the remote reporting is not a show of no information, but is the digestion of information that you already have for someone who can use it in decision-making. So, it's an awareness process. What is true is that European countries still have to improve remote support. So not each organization is already able to send remote support, neither each organization is able to receive remote support. So we have to improve this preparedness, this kind also maybe of training, and this is the same motivation. And it will be better that who is working from remote will be part of a team. This is another highlight that is coming from the workshops and interviews. Yes, we need operational staff, but we need also personnel specialized in their topics like weather forecast, GIS, maybe coordinated by operational personnel that would be the linkages between the field and the remote. We receive the future, so is what I was saying before, is to work on the already existing capacities that we have around Europe, and we don't know, but maybe to find a common way to more method of doing things. That doesn't mean to do all the same things, but to have a reference, a method to do this kind of activity that until now has not a reference of doing it. So the work process that will be finalized for the end of June is this. So we have analyzed that we are analyzing past case studies. We are collecting outcomes from the other AFAN task results, the deliverables, the different deliverables, the webinars that have been already realized, and the workshop, like the just finished one here in France. And so we are going on. I want to thank the people that already have helped us doing it, and the ones that we will help us to finalize. So we are available, of course, for suggestions, for opinions. You can contact us. We can meet, and so doing our best for this kind of delivery. So thank you. Also thank you to the French friends that have organized these days here for us, and all the partnership and the consortium and the coordinators for this AFAN project.
Thank you very much, Giacomo. We are really looking forward to see the results in a few weeks. Okay, last but not least, we'll have the colleagues from ENZOS. Wilfried Stefic and Raphael Suplizon will introduce the networking and knowledge sharing tools that have been developing during the project.
Yes, we would like to explain and say just a couple of words about the knowledge network itself and the tools that have been created or that we are elaborating right now with all the consortium. And the first thing is we started the project with expertise in knowledge management. Since 2008, ENZOS has created a platform for sharing knowledge and other resources, such as feedback, to enable all firefighters in France to optimize their knowledge, and which is unified and standardized in order to learn continuously. This tool, the PNRS, Portail National des Ressources et des Savoirs, is free accessible platform with an unprecedented collection and exchange of documents. knowledge and techniques for firefighters in France. This portal has gradually established itself in the civil security ecosystem from 40,000 visits in 2010 to almost 600,000 visits last year. So we now have a quite good experience in this field of research, or let's say in knowledge management. The second part, I don't need to talk too much about it, as Teresa said some word about it. It's this expertise in knowledge management faced with the needs for the emergence of a knowledge network. So the aim of this knowledge network, the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network, so it's to act as a bridge between knowledge holders relevant to the Union Civil Protection mechanism, strengthen coordination, cooperation, collect and share knowledge, experience, expertise, skills, lessons learned. Also simulate research and innovation. And the last one was strengthen links between civil protection and disaster risk management actors. So yeah, I don't need to talk too much about it, I think. And that's why the AFAN project arrived. And regarding the knowledge management, we want to the aim of this project, is to answer a specific objective to the knowledge network. The first one is to support civil protection and disaster risk management actors that promote and facilitate the development, dissemination, and exchange of knowledge. So we worked during 18 months, almost 18 months, to identify good practices, recommendations, and lessons on in prevention, preparedness, and response, and expertise in civil protection and risk disaster management. And the second specific objective is to support new and consolidate existing partnerships. So AFAN projects help to do that with the existing structures of relevant civil protection and disaster risk management actor. I think it's strengthened and it's expanded during this last few months. And also, it has been explained this morning, new partnerships are established now. So the last point for me is forest fire are in fact the area illustrating the development, dissemination, and exchange of knowledge, good practices, and expertise identified. So that was the specific objective number one. While relying on existing partnership in order to strengthen and make them sustainable. So that was the objective number two. And Raphael now can explain and present the two tools that are being created.
Thank you, Wilfried. So the end-source objective in this particular project was to collect and gather data to create a map showing existing expertise across Europe. So to do that, we thought that a form sent to the different experts across Europe could help to collect different data. And so in this form, we asked location and different organizations information, so the address, the logo, the website, and how to contact them. Short presentation of their institution. there are thematics of expertise according to the fire analyst guidelines made during this project. So it's the meteorology, the fire behavior, fire spread patterns, etc. So this is the questionnaire that we sent. And so the result is that we created the map with the resulting data. And so on this map, so you see all Europe, because we focus here on at the European scale. And so you have the legend that will show you the different institutions. So it's a map showing the institution. We couldn't do because we're using UMAP. We couldn't do different filters because this tool does not allow us to do so. So we focus on the different agencies across Europe. And so if you zoom in and go, for example, here in Spain, you click on the Generalitat Valenciana, and you see all the information, the logo, is it a public entity or private, different information, so website, etc. The incident management system used, it could be interesting for operational, and the different fire analysis profiles. So is it a technical advisor, is it a decision maker, and different domains of expertise. So as you see and know, where are the experts in Europe in different domains that are described in the fire analysis guidelines. And then the second tool that is still ongoing because it's a lot of work, and it's the database. The database is still under construction, and this tool was maybe too ambitious in this project time frame and budget also. But I'm working hard to make it possible and feasible, static for the end of the project, so it means the end of May. So we have some results that I will present you in short seconds. The objective of the database was to be simple in the using and technical in the content. So it needs to, because it needs to be simple, I wanted to have only 3 clicks, because each click is an effort for the expert that is searching. So 3 clicks to arrive to the destination, so it means a result. This database is not available for now to the public because it's still under construction, and the address, the homepage, is not appropriate and need a code. So on this database, you have member space that will allow different experts across Europe to exchange and have a different presentation sheet. The search engine, submit your contribution. So we anticipated for the end of the project to have something like the operator will just receive this submitting form and see the different documents that the person that would like to share his knowledge for this database will present. And so this submitting form is divided into name, surname, country, email address, name of the organization, and a filter that will help the operator to filter the information and put it in the right place in the database. There will be also contact us, and you can also ask question or any suggestion here in this chat. And then it's the main entrance here. it's the different categories that are defined in the fire analyst guidelines. And so I'm working hard to have content in different categories. Like I'm going to present you for now the draft of the meteorological thematic. And so you have all the different websites that I could find with the partners and also by myself. And so it's divided into drought and weather. And if you go like the last one that I saw is discovers this one. You have different tools that can provide information for analysis, for prevention, especially in drought and weather. But after, it's the knowledge that do the expertise. Another category is fire behavior. That is for now the most advanced thematic of the database, and so you will see different tools. So it will be a sheet. So if you go in Sandbank, you will see description and also which country is using it. So used by, here it's Gardanne, but we still have to hear about other country. We saw that during this workshop, other country were using another part because Gardanne is only in Tuscany. So maybe in Italia they use another part this tool. Description and example of use. This is the objective of the database, to give example of use and different documentation. So the database is a living tool that needs to be maintained in time and also upgraded. So there's a notion of me, will, and of course, mine. And I would like to conclude my presentation with Wilfried with few personal words. So as this project is on his last month, I just wanted to thank all the partners. It was a pleasure for me and for ANSOS to meet all of you, discuss, exchange, and build together this project to better understand this living thing, fire. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have now seen all the presentations, all the AFAN outcomes that are either ready or will be prepared. We have a few minutes for questions, so I'll ask all the speakers if they can come here at the front. Also, in the meantime, just mention that the form that Rafael was showing to be included in the map, this is still available and is open for everyone to join. So we'll be updating that for a few weeks more. So it's open here, yeah, Laia, Onan, Giacomo.
Nuria?
Yeah.
Hello? Yes. Yeah, thank you for the presentations. It was nice to have the project being presented from different perspectives. My question, and anybody can answer it once, is much of what has been presented about AFAN seems to be very response-oriented and tactically oriented, and the role of a fire analyst could also extend very much in the prevention phase as well, preparedness. So like the strategic fuel breaks that you guys do in Catalan, I think that one could only really do that with knowledge of fire analysis and to be able to analyze, okay, which communities are really at risk, where do we need to do our fuels work, how do we need to manipulate the vegetation in order to have an impact on fire behavior. So I was wondering in what degree the AFAN project evaluated the role of a fire analyst in terms of fuel management in the prevention and preparedness phase?
Yeah. I think that we have limited time to do that. We have said that at some point the fire analyst has or should have this vision monitoring the fire season itself. And it is in a part of the emergency cycle, but it's also in preparedness and even post-fire. So the point is that perhaps we have not developed all these parts in deepness that it's necessary, but I expect that with these different projects that will be after this project, we will be able to address these parts because they are also important and contribute, and the contribution of fire analysts there is also remarkable, even as a part of acquiring this knowledge that will be used during the wildfires analysis also. So it's a way of keeping on mind different things that will be used there. So that's true that perhaps here is not so used, but probably we will try to develop better.
I'd like to react to what has just been said, to explain that when we talk about the prevention of forest fires, more and more will be involved by territorial management. We have to organize the territory to ensure that the resilience of the terrain and identify the resilience, identify what are the aspects or weak points of the territory, and fire analysts will be able to redefine the prevention, especially for example the propagation of fire, the spreading of fire, and they will be able to reassess the risks and a reverse methodology, what we realize often when in forest fire we react differently. So this element will become more and more pregnant, especially in territories where there are political and economic aspects, and we have to, it will be upstream that the analyst will intervene and not downstream.
Thank you. Philippe, there is
Yes, it's a question, and it's more perhaps for Teresa. We know all the Copernicus system, and we are all very happy with the system and the service it provides. But we have feedback that all this information is coming too late to be used directly on the field and for the fire analyst. Do you think that we could have from the European Commission and from all these satellite systems a more on-live visualization of what happens than what we have now? It's more a 6-hour delay to have this information, and so we are managing not the real fire, but an image, a past image of the fire.
I think that we need here the science pillar of the knowledge network, the colleagues from the GRC that in fact are in charge of managing Copernicus, and Copernicus is activated when needed. So I'm not sure, from a policy officer, I'm not sure that there are already products that that go in the direction that you are asking. So in any case, if there is the need, we will try to take this need and ask to the colleagues that are managing. In fact, I know that Copernicus, for example, is really useful for managing the recovery phase, because we already have some example of using the maps also for managing the following, the recovery phase. But I'm not sure about the prevention, but I will let you know.
Thank you, Teresa. Do we have any other questions online? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, if that's the case, Thank you for the speakers for presenting what you have been working in the last months. And thank you everyone who has participated here in the room, online. We know, I have been looking at Celia a few times, there have been technical difficulties, but hopefully has been able to go through. So thank you very much everyone. We'll be working in what's left in the project for a few months, so please feel free to contact with us and interact. You know what's being produced and where we're gonna go with this short project. And yeah, all the emails and all the information can be found on the website. So thank you very much.